Hey guys, so in an effort to save time, I'm going to flip out this lesson to you. You could take notes as I go along and also jot down any questions you have in the top part of your notebook designated for questions. Okay, so this is the age of absolutism, and it is kind of a bummer we're not doing it in class because it's one of my favorite ones to teach. It's just fascinating to me. If you look at this map of Europe, you can see that the nation states of England, France, Spain, Portugal are there, but Italy's not a country yet. Germany's not on the map. The Ottoman Empire has control over a huge chunk of Eastern Europe. So this is all going to start to change as time goes on, but this is the type of map that we're dealing with now. So absolutism came into play as a result of the age of exploration. Okay, so as the monarchs got more money from their colonies, they were able to, further centralize their power, and they started to gain absolute power, which is you can see is total power. So Spain, France, the Germanic kingdoms, the Habsburg Empire, which is also Austria, those monarchs all had absolute power. Now, technically, England had parliament, but that does not mean that their monarch was not extremely powerful. It's just his power or her power was not absolute. So, absolutism, by definition, is a political system in which rulers have complete control over the government and the lives of their people and their nations. That's your textbook definition. Basically, that means an absolute monarch has power over everything and everyone. Now, if you say everything and everyone without giving specifics, we all know that that's going to give you a 0, 1, or 2 on the AP exam. So you need to be specific. What types of things do they have control over? Religion, government. There's going to be times in different countries where, especially England, where it's going to be okay to be Catholic one day, and then the next day you have to be Protestant, and then the next day you're going to have to be Catholic again, and then you become Protestant, and just things keep flipping because your monarch tells you this is your religion. They have absolute power over you. The type of government that you have, their military actions, which is actually going to really impact taxes and how much money is collected, your culture, from how you dress and including how you wear your hair, your absolute monarch has control over you. The economy, how much taxes are being charged, what the taxes are being spent on, they have complete control. There's no one that could say, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure that's a good idea? Because then they could imprison them or kill them. They have absolute power. There's no messing with them. So basically, it's good to be the king, which is a Mighty Python. No, that's History of the World Part 1 reference, and you'll watch that someday when you're older. So we're going to start with Spain. Now, Charles V is the son of Ferdinand and Isabella, which I'm hoping rings a bell, in that they were the monarchs of Spain that funded loaned Christopher Columbus the money to voyage westward. They were also the parents of Catherine of Aragon, who was Henry VIII's first wife. Charles V was argued as technically the first absolute monarch, and his reign was from 1515 until 1556. And he had a political marriage, as most marriages were, with a princess from Austria, and that gave him power over Spain, Austria, the Netherlands, the Holy Roman Empire, because he was also the Holy Roman Emperor, and all the New World territories. So he had massive, massive territory over the world. And as these colonies were making money, it was through a policy called mercantilism, which I'm going to get into a little bit later, but I will get into what mercantilism is. He was the guy who put Martin Luther on trial for the trial during the trial of Worms. I'm hoping you remember Martin Luther as the guy who started the Protestant Reformation and who was demanded to recant his ideas. If not, he was going to be excommunicated, and he was put on trial, and that was that guy. But he also protects Europe from the Muslims in the southeast, and he gives up his throne and he gives up his reign and becomes a monk. After his wife's death, he just kind of is like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go become a monk. You're going to notice his chin with his beard. he had a particular, I don't want to say deformity, but they had an oddly shaped, there's a genetic, oh, what's the word? Like a genetic mishap, where they had this projected chin, and he wore a beard to try to cover it up, as did his son, which we're going to get to. As you can see, he controlled a huge amount of Europe, right? All the different colors. If you look at the key, right? You pet the key, love the key, be one with the key. So this is the territory that he controlled, including all these colors as well. Well, excuse me, the blue are his enemies. That's my mistake. The blue are his enemies. And over here in the New World, these are Spanish discoveries, and then also become the New World, the Spanish Empire. So he had a ton of money coming in. Now his son, Philip II, which again grew the beard, had that weird chin thing going on. His son, Philip II, claimed that he had divine right, that his authority to rule comes directly from God, which can be compared to the mandate of heaven in China. If you don't listen to me, that God is going to be angry with you and bad things will happen to you. I am God's choice, so you have to follow my rule. He was freakishly efficient and organized. He was sometimes called the paper king. Every single document that went across his desk, he would read. He had a traveling desk in his carriage, so when he would go on, for lack of a better term, road trips, he could still maintain his paperwork. And he was very, very, very Catholic. Mass every morning, didn't eat until he had communion, very freakishly Catholic, and also the Holy Roman Emperor. So I can see here that this top part is cut off. This actually says English invasion. Okay, and if it's in purple like this, you don't have to copy it down per se. This is just some fun side stories. So you may remember from last year, Philip II married Queen Mary of England. Now Mary was the daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. She becomes known as Bloody Mary because she's Catholic, and if you remember, Henry made England Protestant, and when Edward, his son, had died, Mary became queen, and she was Catholic, but she didn't do any bad things to Protestants in the beginning. But what ends up happening is she's having a hard time staying pregnant. She's getting pregnant, but she's not carrying to term. She's miscarrying. She never actually has a successful pregnancy. And one of the reasons why she thinks that she can't have a successful pregnancy is because she's allowing Protestants to live in England. So because Philip was her husband and he was the king of Spain and the whole Spanish Inquisition, they bring the Inquisition to England. They kill thousands of Protestants, and she earns the nickname Bloody Mary. Sadly, she dies probably of depression, and she begs her sister Elizabeth to keep England Catholic, and Elizabeth's like, no, I'm not going to lie to you on your deathbed, and, crazy things happen. So one of the ways that Elizabeth was able to stay alive during this whole time was she was a little bit flirtatious with King Philip. And she was kind of like, hello, Philip. And Philip was like, hello, Elizabeth. And when Mary died, Elizabeth becomes queen. And now Philip's like, hello, now we can get married. And Elizabeth's all, no, sorry, no, I'm totally done. I'm not marrying you. And he was a little bit upset by that. And they continued to have issues. So, again, the top here, this says Spanish Armada. It's outside my recording screen. So this says Spanish Armada. So in 1588, and if you've ever watched Billy Madison, you know that 1588 is the year of the Spanish Armada. And if you haven't, watch Billy Madison. It's a great movie. So Elizabeth I knights English pirates. So Philip's like, listen, and if you look at it's 1588, boats are coming back and forth from the New World carrying silver and other treasures and commodities, and you have English pirates basically looting these ships. And Philip says to Elizabeth, come on, get your guys to back off. So Elizabeth rounds up the pirates, brings them into court, tells them to kneel before her, and she knights them for service to the English monarchy. And Philip's all like, are you freaking kidding me? Because first of all, he feels like rejected, and then she does that. So he sends his armada, which is the Spanish word for navy, to go and invade England. And he said, well, God will be on our side. I'm Catholic. England's Protestant. I have the true religion. Funny thing is that while they were here in the English Channel, a Protestant wind, as it's called, came down from heaven and destroyed most of the Spanish armada. So now Elizabeth's like, yeah, guess whose side God's on? And he had to go home, and they actually eventually start to lose power, and their global influence starts to decrease because they lost a big chunk of their navy in this invasion. A little side story. When they dock here in Ireland, they go to a place called Galway. And if you ever go to Galway City in County Galway, there are the Spanish Steps there. And the Irish welcomed the Spanish because the Irish were Catholic, being oppressed by the British Protestantism and just really not nice rules, which again we're going to talk about later. But if you ever go to Galway City, Spanish Steps, you could say, hey, that was during the Spanish Armada. This guy has to be my favorite absolute monarch because, one, just look at him. He's wearing heels, and you know how much I love heels. But two, he just takes absolutism to a whole new level. This is Louis XIV, and he was the absolute ruler of France from 1638 to 1715. Now, he ruled France for 72 years. He had advisors helping him in the beginning. I believe he became monarch at the age of 5 or 6. And he didn't gain absolute power at age 5 or 6. He had people helping him. But his was the longest reigning monarchy in European history. And he refers to himself as the Sun King. That is because the sun gives us life, don't you know? And the sun is at the center of our solar system. And he is at the center of France. He said, and I don't speak French, but if you speak French, that's what he said, and what that translates into is, I am the state. This is usually the part I ask when my French speakers to say, how do you say that? But he's extremely narcissistic. He really loves himself. He claims divine right, but he takes it to a whole new level. He does have a world empire as well, a new world empire. He controls Canada, Louisiana, Haiti, which, pay attention because that's going to be in the spotlight in a couple chapters, along with other Caribbean islands. But what he's most famous for is building the Palace of Versailles and the wealth and the opulence that go along with it. It is sheer madness what this man does with his money and his time. So this is, if you look, the blue, so again, pet the key, love the key, the one with the key. The blue is basically French America, and over here is France. He also has control over Haiti, which is the westernmost part of Hispaniola. And that's going to finish it up for this segment. I have to start a new segment to continue on because these will be done in about 15-minute increments.